you feel that? The chill as it spreads through your body. A shiver runs up your spine as the brisk wind bites. This is no time to freeze. You stand face to face with veterans, masters of this world, champions in these conditions. Focus on your training. Use the pressure as it cracks the world around you. As the ground melts beneath you, slow your breathing. Focus your mind. The Arctic awaits.
The global adventure continues. From Senegal in West Africa, Extreme E moves 4,000 miles north to the dramatic landscape of the Arctic Circle. Very much looking forward to this. Welcome to round 3 of the series. We're at the midway point of the season already, and this one is going to be very different from what we've seen so far. 2 desert events. Now we're up in the ice and the cold of Greenland. My name is Andrew Colin. Joining me as always is Jenny Gow.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this. A total change of scenery, a change of climate, a change of subject. But I tell you what, the racing is still going to be fantastic. And in case you haven't joined us before, this is what you can expect with Extreme E.
The consequences of climate change are affecting millions of people across the planet.
Cities worldwide are going to become uninhabitable.
Extreme E is an all-electric off-road racing series with a purpose, raising awareness of the devastating effect climate change is having on our planet in fully electric off-road SUVs. Racing in some of the most remote and damaged areas on Earth.
I think it's really important to immerse yourself in those areas so we can increase awareness, and from awareness we can have more people taking more actions.
To tackle these demanding locations requires one of the most robust racing cars ever built, the Odyssey 21.
The car feels insane.
It's amazing how much torque you have to have immediate power when you touch the throttle pedal. It's proper exciting to drive.
With some of the biggest names in motorsport behind the wheel and a 50-50 split male and female driver lineup, teams will go wheel to wheel on the most extreme terrains, in the most extreme temperatures, driving the most extreme vehicle. Backed by a team of industry-leading scientists to guarantee we not only race without a trace, but we leave a lasting legacy at every location.
Wouldn't it be great to be a part of something that really does make a difference?
This is fierce and exciting racing with the future of our planet at its heart. This is the greatest adventure of our time. This is Extreme E.
Well, the series was 4 years in the making. Felt like we had to wait a long time to finally go racing, but this season is, of course, where we have started. We're at the Arctic X Prix now, which is halfway through round 3 of 5 events all around the world. We've had 2 so far already, and it's been quite a ride, to say the least. So let's take a look back at the action so far.
The opening round of the Extreme E Championship began in the lunar landscapes of Al Ula, deep in the heart of Saudi Arabia, where the deserts are expanding as a direct result of climate change.
Certification is the process of degrading the land as it dries out, and in the future we see the deserts expanding.
Extreme E's legacy project is charged to leave a lasting difference in every race location. With the beaches a key spot for the sea turtle population, the teams and drivers set out to clean and maintain this crucial habitat. The next day and the first wheel-to-wheel racing action saw chaos in the dunes.
She's got it backed off. He's in the dust now, looking for a way through. No lifting! Oh, he hits her!
Having survived the brutal duels in the desert, 3 teams, Anngunniunneq, Rosberg X Racing and X44 had made it to the final.
Green light on the outside, lots and lots of wheel spin. Who's in front? It's Johan. Johan has managed to get in front again as he kicks the car up really high.
He handed over to Molly Taylor, who held her nerve until the finish.
This is going to be Molly Taylor winning the first ever Extreme E X Prix.
RXR took the opening victory in the very first Extreme E race, with Anngunniunneq sitting closely second. Round 2 and the Ocean X Prix awaits on the African shores of Senegal. Racing on the beaches to highlight plastic pollution and the damage being done to our ocean, and show how sea level rise will affect humanity globally. Extreme's legacy project commits to plant 1 million mangrove trees along the Senegalese coast, helping to capture and store carbon in the soil and protect the coastlines against storms.
Come here, we plant the mangroves, and understanding the importance of the mangroves, I have to say, it feels really good to be part of this.
As the tide withdrew, the drivers prepared to tackle the tight, technical and unforgiving course. With the racing underway, it was American Kyle LeDuc who found early form.
LeDuc commits over the bump, now he goes for Sands as well. LeDuc's going to shut the door, he does it! P3 to P1, brilliant!
The final of the Ocean X Prix saw championship leaders Rosberg X Racing and X44 line up alongside Veloce Racing and Jenson Button's team JBXE.
Looking for the signal, and they're green, off they go!
It wasn't long off the start that the unrelenting beach course and door-to-door racing cut the grid in half.
I come over, guys, sorry.
And we've got a problem as well for JBXE.
With only Veloce and RXR left in the final, they faced off in a one-lap showdown to decide the winner, with W Series champion Jamie Chadwick facing off against Johan Kristoffersen.
And they are off!
With Kristoffersen muscling his way through on the beach straight, he held on to bring home the Ocean X Prix crown.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
With back-to-back race wins, Rosberg X Racing lead the championship, followed closely in second by Team X44, with JBXE, Abt United and Xite Energy completing the top 5.
Great stuff so far this season, some brilliant racing. RXR dominating the finals, X44 have been dominating the qualifying stages. We wonder whether or not that form's going to continue this weekend. It really is a very different style of track here, isn't it? I'm super excited to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, we had a little sneaky peek of it yesterday with shakedown and the first practice session, but today it's all about qualifying. It's all about how the drivers are going to tackle this very different surface, a very different feel to the whole championship weekend, really.
I think it's great to see everybody's wearing hats, coats, snoods. You know, you can tell it's a bit different, can't we, from flip-flops and shorts and everything that we've seen at the previous events. And it's been a huge experience for them all as well, being up on the glacier and learning about the issues which are up here in Greenland. So brilliant stuff so far. So we're going to get into the action. These guys are the championship leaders with 2 wins. Johan Kristoffersen and Molly Taylor. They've been brilliant, haven't they?
They really have. Let's find out a little bit about how they're feeling ahead of this weekend. Our reporter Caroline de Moraes caught up with them a little earlier on.
I'm here with RXR's Molly Taylor and Johan Kristoffersen. Molly, I'm going to come to you first. 2 incredible wins out of 2 races. How confident are you feeling here at the Arctic X Prix?
Oh, we're feeling good. We had a taste of the track yesterday and it looks fantastic. So every event we come to is a clean slate. So we're just focused on getting on with the job and putting our best foot forward this weekend.
Johan, Molly said you had a go at the track yesterday. What were the conditions like and how do they fare against the first 2 races?
Yeah, it's a little bit different compared to the first 2, but it's a bit sandy in the beginning and then it's more towards like a rally station in the middle, and then yeah, it's flat and very fast in the end. So we have some rock garden at the end there, which is pretty exciting as well. So it's a little bit different, but yeah, let's see.
And how confident are you feeling? The gates are slightly wider now, so maybe a little bit room for overtaking?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, but there's always the fastest line, but at least it gives us the space to maybe do some tries later on when we will drive the heats together. But yeah, I'm super excited to get going.
And Molly, obviously we're here for such a good cause. It's all about climate change and you were on the ice sheet. How did it feel being in such a magnificent place, but also seeing the realities?
It's a pretty spectacular place to be. You see it on the TV, but I don't think it does it justice to what it really feels like when you're there and you see the scale of it, and then also the scale of the issue as well. So I think it was an incredible experience to be able to witness that with your own eyes and certainly put everything into perspective.
And Johan, what was your impression?
Well, it's experience to be up there, and the first thing you think is just beautiful and some cool experience, but then after a while when you see how much ice is melting, then it's pretty worrying.
Well, listen, thank you so much and best of luck this weekend.
very different challenge from the two desert-like venues we've been to before. Temperatures here much lower and a much different set of surfaces. Off the start line, fairly open. We've got a couple of tight corners where we can expect the cars to try to get in a line, but if they're not in a line by that hairpin just before the cliff face, you are definitely going to be following the cars in front through the next section. It gets very, very narrow, as we see here. One of the Abt Cupra drivers heading up over the top of the crest and down through that narrow section. It is literally one car wide. There's an off-camber corner in there which is really tricky, and it continues right down to the lake section. In the background you can see these dirt roads are going to cut up. It's very soft sand and gravel, a real mixture, very few places to pass. Once you get through that section, up towards the Russell Glacier, the ice sheet in the background of this hairpin at the very far end of the course, then things start to get interesting. The track is much wider and much more open. We can expect to see many variances of lines through here, and this is also where the super sector is. The fastest driver through the super sector will take 5 championship points home at the end of this weekend. There's a drop-off on the way into it, then it's flat out through some turns over the dried-up riverbeds, and it ends with this section here, breaking down the X44 car this was, towards a big crest, and that's where the super sector stops. So is anybody going to really risk it through there for those extra championship points? Might you use the hyperdrive, or you could save it for the back straight, flat out across a super low flat plane of gravel before coming up towards a new challenge right at the end of the course, the rock garden. These are big boulders like nothing we've seen so far. Do you risk it? Do you go flat out? Do you take it a little bit easier, as we see the X44 driver Sebastian Loeb doing here? We've seen people take both approaches. A brilliant track here at Kalaallit for round 3.
Oh, it looks really good, doesn't it? Now, one of the key principles of Extreme E is to highlight the impact of climate change on the planet. In Greenland, the focus is on the effect of rising temperatures on the ice sheet, which is melting at an alarming pace. To explain more, here are 2 members of Extreme E's Science Committee.
The Arctic is incredibly important in studying climate change because it's warming up faster than any other part of the world.
Greenland is an important piece of the climate change problem because 80% of the island is covered by an ice sheet. It's very vulnerable to warming, and therefore we're losing ice. We're losing ice on Greenland, but we're also losing sea ice. And the sea ice is a mirror that reflects solar radiation back to the atmosphere. And when we lose it, rather than being reflected up, it's absorbed by the ocean and contributes to warming. Since 1979 to present, we have seen losses of sea ice in the summer, which have increased at 13% per decade. So the Greenland ice sheet is one of the most important reservoirs of ice in the planet.
This is, of course, a huge ice sheet, but it's losing mass at an enormous rate. In fact, last time we were on it, it was the biggest daily loss in history, was 12.5 billion tons of water melted off in that one day.
And on the last years, the rate of loss of ice and the delivery of fresh water to the ocean has been equivalent to be able to flood England with 2 meters of water every year coming from the Greenland ice sheet.
In August this year, the rain was observed to fall on the top of the Greenland ice sheet for the first time. That's 4,000 meters above sea level, and it's never rained there before. The big consequence of the melting of land ice is that sea level rises, and it's inexorable that it's rising. And all of that retreat produces meltwater, and the meltwater goes into the ocean and causes sea level rise. More than 600 million people live in areas that are below 10 meters above sea level.
We must absolutely take action everywhere to avoid that the unleashed climate change that we're starting to experience in the Arctic propagates and cascades and affects the entire planet. It is a situation where we need all hands on deck and all solutions on deck.
Well, that explains why we're here, but it's time to get ready to go racing. You can see the paddock all wrapped up, all snug, the cars in their little tents, but the time now is for it to get serious and for qualifying to get underway.
Yeah, the drivers will be looking forward to this. I know it's a lot of waiting. It's been a long time since round 2. And time to get those wheels rolling again and attack another Extreme E course. We're ready for round one of qualifying from the Arctic X Prix. It's 4 degrees Celsius down on the ground. That in the background is the Russell Glacier, one of the issues which we are focusing on here this weekend in Greenland. And we're in the command centre. You can see some of the drivers, technicians, team managers getting ready to get qualifying underway. So this is Veloce out on track already. In fact, it's Emma Gilmore. So just, we were looking in the command centre and Emma is away from the start already. This is her debut weekend, the rally driver from New Zealand who spent 2 months in London waiting to go and do this because, of course, leaving New Zealand has been pretty tricky recently.
Yeah, she wanted to make sure she was here and ready to step in, replacing Jamie Chadwick this weekend, who's on W Series duty, and Emma Gilmore. Pressure time for her because you want to do your very best. You want to try and impress. Maybe you're in the shop window a little bit, but on the other hand, you don't want to blow it either. So let's see what she can do. Stefan Sarazan, driver number 2, coming in. They'll have the switch, but this is 1 lap. Then, as I said, they do the switch. Then the other driver gets in. They do 1 lap, and you put that together, and that should give us a little guide as to what will happen for tomorrow and who manages to go through into the different qualifying rounds and into the final. And the crazy race is back as well. There's so much to look forward to this weekend.
Yes, and changes to format, meaning that basically 2 cars, it's all about a 5-car final. So the 5-car final means 2 cars each go forward from the semi-finals. But now, if you're in that bottom race, if you're in P7, 8 or 9 from qualifying, you still have a chance to make the final. And that's why they've decided that one's the crazy race, because there will be only 1 position available from those 3 cars. So ideally, Jenny, you want to be in semi-1 or semi-2 because obviously you've got a 33% more chance of making it through to the final.
Have you been doing maths again overnight without telling me?
It's a terrifying prospect, isn't it?
Look at you, on fire this morning.
It's interesting though, what they've done with the semi-finals is very different. So semi-1 is the top qualifier and P5 and P6. Semi-2 is the people who've qualified 2nd, 3rd and 4th. Now that to me means semi-2 is way harder than semi-1. It's going to mean we're going to see a 5th or a 6th place team go through, which we probably wouldn't have seen before. But also for me, Jenny, it means that the top qualifier spot is a massive advantage now. Because you are almost certainly going to win semi-1 if you're the top qualifier. You're going to have the pace advantage over the guys in P5 and P6.
It is fascinating to see what these drivers can do around such a very different track. I mean, we've seen sand before, but a very, oh dear, and she's taken out a marker. She's gone wide. She's taking a little bit of the shrubbery as well, just clattering into that gate, and that will be a penalty.
Well, it will be reported to the stewards. So what they've said is if you touch a flag, you're okay. If you knock a flag down, it will be reported to the stewards. Now, I think personally they'll look at that and say, you know what, I don't think any time was gained there. As you can see the Russell Glacier in the background of that shot. So the stewards will make a decision on it. I think that's the right way to do it, because otherwise you can get silly and go, right, it's a 30-second penalty for not getting a flag down. She's made a mistake and lost some time already. You almost don't need to rub it in. But unfortunately, Jenny, stewards do have a knack of rubbing it in sometimes.
You know my background. The stewards will penalise for everything in Formula One, so I just assume it'll be a penalty. Let's see. Now, if we look at this shot, you can see Emma coming down through the flat area. This is the riverbed area, but a beautiful shot will unfold in a minute because she goes past the Russell Glacier, and I can tell you it is stunning to look at. There we go, top of your screen. That is the glacier. That is what is melting away. It's the reason we're here, because the scientists are working on it. The drivers have been up there as well to have a little explore around it. Whoa, look at that little air gaining there. This is a really terrific section of the track.
Yeah, it really, the first section, some of the drivers are actually comparing to Saudi Arabia. They're saying it's very sandy up to waypoint 15 and it's quite cresty. It's pretty similar. It doesn't look quite as cresty as Saudi Arabia looked. And I also think the teams have managed to get the suspension a little bit more dialed. We saw the rear end of the cars getting fired up quite high a lot when we went to Senegal. I think most of the teams have managed to get rid of that now. You saw the one there from Emma. You know, there's a limit to it. These cars weigh nearly 2 tons, so there is a point at which the momentum will overcome the suspension. But if you look at how quickly the wheels are deflecting, there's a lot of suspension travel there. That's what's so great about these Odyssey 21 vehicles. Yeah, they're able to go over such varied terrain, and we really have got lots of different surfaces here. Emma late on the brakes, getting the car slowed now. She crosses another rough riverbed and up. And look at the way the track's developing, Jenny. It's going to change a lot.
Yeah, look, it looks almost like on the moon. It's incredible. So this is going into the long flat section now. It's very fast. You could see people using their hyperdrivers. They really try and find a little bit of pace. We've also got the super sector this weekend. If you go fastest during the super sector over the weekend, you get an extra 5 team points. So very valuable, as you can just see the tremendous landscape behind Emma. She's no stranger to this. Growing up in New Zealand, it's almost a little bit similar, but then you have the rocks.
That was good. So she used her hyperdrive there, Jenny, which you can see at the bottom of the screen. You can see the little the purple X at the bottom, and that's one of the sections, as you noted, which we're sorry, maybe using it now. And that's to give the extra power. This is on the long, fast section. So you've got 2 ways of using that extra power. This long straight is probably going to gain you the most time. But if you were looking to get those 5 championship points, I think you need to use it in the super sector. So it's quite a cleverly placed super sector, because you know you're saying to the teams, well, do you want the 5 points or do you want the fastest time? I think maybe you'll see people go for that fastest sector. Emma's on a big push there. I think maybe you'll see them go for the fastest sector later in the weekend when they maybe know they're not going to get the win. That's when you go, okay, I'm not going to win, I'll go for the fastest sector time.
I like the fact that the championship's testing people. It's testing the strategy as well by putting that super sector there, by giving hyperdrive. It's kind of saying, you know, you can make up your mind, but you need to make it count for you.
Emma Gilmore's looking great here. So yesterday, you know, let's see how she approaches the rock garden. So the rock garden had a couple of messages from drivers overnight saying it is a high-risk strategy. Basically, you can gain a huge amount of time by going flat out over that, but that's where you're going to risk a puncture, and we saw that yesterday. Or, again, fires the rear end of the car. But Emma, to me, looks much more comfortable in the car today than she did yesterday. That's to be expected. She got a small shakedown in the team car, the championship car, so not her own car. And then yesterday, her first run ever in an Extreme car around the full course. Really hard for her. Going to be late on the brakes now. Got to get down to 30 kilometres now from the changeover zone. Expect this braking zone to get really cut up there. Takes all the speed off at the end, and now into the switch zone. They have to pass through these chevrons on the left-hand side of your screen, and actually Christine GZ didn't yesterday, and they got a 15-second penalty for that in the end, but it's free practice, so it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to make that mistake today.
Okay, so car 5, 10-second penalty for downing the flag. So she did get a penalty. Yeah. Maybe they've transferred the F1 stewards across for the weekend, who knows? But they'll do the driver switch now. Now, this is the first time Emma's had to do this in anger. It's a tricky thing to get used to because the cars are so specific. The Odyssey 21 takes a lot of getting used to. This is her first time. But Stefan Sarazan, he's done plenty of driver switches in his varying roles in sports car, so he'll just strap himself in, and the bungee strap there attached to the seat belt, Andrew, and you noticed that yesterday in practice. A lot of the teams doing that now.
Yeah, they are. We said right at the first event, I was like, wow, you know, these guys, they're pulling the harnesses off and laying them back over the back of the seats. You know, that's novice stuff. And now we're on. All the teams have gone, actually, do you know what? This is a driver change. Let's put bungees on the straps. It's pretty obvious. I was surprised not to see it earlier. Sarazan releases. There'll be someone with a timer there who's let him go. Remember, the switch has to be 45 seconds with the car in neutral. So Sarazan is heading out onto the track. We can hear from Emma Gilmore.
I'm with Veloce's Emma Gilmore. Emma, this is your first race, and that qualifying was much better than yesterday's practice. Am I right?
Well, I've just doubled my experience. So, yeah, it was good to have had the experience last night, able to look at all the data and feedback and stuff, and, yeah, have a bit more of an idea. It's first time driving an electric vehicle, so, yeah, I have to adapt my driving style to accommodate that.
And your first experience in Extreme E, I mean, how are you finding it?
Yeah, it's a pretty deep end, but absolutely loving it. It's so cool.
Brilliant. Best of luck for the rest of the weekend.
Thank you.
So Caroline de Moraes in the pit lane for us today, and she was asking Emma Gilmore the questions, and it sounds like Emma really enjoyed her time out in the car, gaining her experience. This actually the team Veloce were the last car out on track yesterday evening, so they're in a fortunate position that pretty much the same conditions for them today. The track hasn't developed, it hasn't evolved too much overnight, but for some of the other teams who were earlier out yesterday for practice, they're going to have a very different track to get their heads around when they finally get to go out there for their first qualifying session.
Yeah, that was a great spot by you yesterday, Jenny. As you say, last car out, look at it, it's very, very similar to how it was when they attacked it yesterday. What would be interesting to know is whether they made any changes. Some of the teams said that, you know, they were going to have a good think about what they were going to do, and if you're in the position these guys were, P9 for Emma and Stefan, they could watch everybody else go round and go, that looks tricky, maybe we could do this, we'll change that. If you were one of the first cars to go out, you go back and go, oh, everybody else has done this, maybe we need to change the car. But the track's going to be so different, it'll be a job to know whether you've gone the right way. Look at the ruts developing up through this narrow section. I'll be staggered if there's any passing in here, and that's the one corner which yesterday was causing the drivers problems. Actually, I think that's got easier, where the dirt has moved out wide. It was off camber, and it's become a little bit flatter now.
Interesting. Okay, well, I'll drop down off this little ridge towards the lake, and I tell you what, the first time I saw the cars go past here, I was like, hang on a minute. How close are they? This is a 5-car final that will be taking place this weekend. The first time we'll have 5 cars competing. And I can see this section. I mean, look how close they are to the water's edge. 5 cars around that. That is going to be challenging. I think 5 cars is going to be challenging anyway, isn't it? I have to say, I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, Carl Leduc at the start of the season said he wants to see all 9 cars in the final. We're up for that. I mean, that's going to make a great bit of TV. That was the flag which Emma Gilmore hit. You could see the green flag on that gate is still missing. Absolutely loving the drone shots, partly to see the action, also to see in the background. It is stunning, isn't it? It really is. It's one of the largest ice masses, and sadly melting far too quickly, and that's the beauty of Extreme E. We've got some motorsport, which I hope you guys are feeling entertained by, and then I'm certainly learning some stuff that I knew nothing about before with regard to the environment and what a precarious situation we are in. So Stefan Sarazan setting the pace today. This will be the first time on the board, and then we'll be able to start comparing how everybody else is doing. You want to accrue as many points. That's how they're doing it this weekend. Slightly different again from the last time we were racing. So you get 2 sessions for qualifying, each driver doing 1 lap with the switch as well. Those times are recorded, and both sessions make your classification points. Now those points give us an intermediate standing, and based on those points, that'll give positions at the end of qualifying.
Yeah, exactly. They're not championship points. So basically the fastest time gets, is it 9 points, Jenny, I think? 12? 12 for the fastest time. Oh, are you talking championship points or qualifying points?
No.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So basically, yeah, they'll the reason for it is, if you remember last time, Acciona Sainz retired, and because it was adding the 2 times up previously in Senegal from the 2 sessions, if you retired, you were never ever going to make it through to the semi-finals and the final. And we don't want that. You know, we want all the teams to have the opportunity to fight their way back through. So yeah, it's 9 points if you're fastest, 8 points if you're second fastest, and we just add them up. So in the case of Carlos Sainz and Leia Sanz last time, they'd have got 1 point for their first session, but if they'd have had an absolute blinder in the second session, they might still have made the semi-finals. And what's even better here is, as we've already said, actually, there's still a route to the final from the crazy race. So before you knew, look at that, that's a stunner, isn't it? Before you knew your weekend could be over really early, and now there is always an opportunity to fight back. And I think while it can be a little bit confusing sometimes when things get changed, it's great that the championship is reacting so quickly and going, you know what, we can do this better. Yeah,
it's really exciting to see that there's a route into the final for everybody now. We like that very much. It gives everybody a chance, doesn't it, to try and get through, to try and get themselves more points. Remember, at this point in time, look at that lovely jump. It's Rosberg Racing that are leading the standings. They have a clear advantage over X44. It's a 14-point gap at the moment, so there's a lot of pressure on everybody else in the field to try and challenge, to gain and claw back some points this weekend and make a championship challenge.
Look how quick this section is across the back. So fast. Christopherson said it's very much a track of 3 sections. Yeah, the section before the narrow section, then the finish. I'd say it's sandy for the first half. I'd say it basically from the narrow hill, you've got sand before it, you've got gravel after it. Sarazan coming down. This is going to be the benchmark time coming up to the rock garden. Is he going to risk it over the rock garden? He could, being near the end of the track. For me, the second driver, Jenny, could afford to risk it much more than the first one, because you can drag a puncture to the line, no problem at all. You're not going to drag it around a whole lap. We saw yesterday Kevin Hansen's team, JBXE, changed the puncture. So does he go flat out? No, I'd say, oh my goodness me, that is hard work by anyone's standards.
Really good job from Sarazan there. He's got so much experience, and he's going to bring it to the line. Just a short dash now, as you can see him making his way up here. What's the first time going to be on the board? Sarazan crosses for Veloce, and it is a 14.19.436.
JBXE squad were second out on course. Michaela Arlink-Godlinski taking the wheel for the first half of the run. And it all started brilliantly. They were around 10 seconds up, just a few waypoints into the lap.
Yeah, really impressive start for Michaela. She's showing that she's growing in her experience and talent each time she gets in this car. This is the third round, and she's using what she's learned before to apply here. Jensen Button watching on from the command centre. He was being impressed by what she was able to do.
This was where the problem started, so she took a slightly different line into one of the dry riverbeds in the bottom of the valley, and the car cut out. It took around 1:50 to reset it. You could see the frustration from Jensen Button, but worse was to come, Jenny, over the rock garden.
Yeah, chose a line, had a big clatter into one of those angry-looking rocks, and unfortunately, the suspension on the car, as you can see there, something went very wrong with it. So that was the end of the run. Kevin Hansen didn't get in the car, no real time set. Time for the third of our qualifying, and it will be the Xite Energy racing team to take to the track. They are all ready to go. Oliver Bennett in the command centre, but it'll be Christine GZ who takes the start line. There we go, lights go green, and off she goes. You can hear the engine kick in, the full power of this electric energy, meaning that there's no lag at all, and off she goes. She knows that the Veloce Racing team have already set a time on the board, so she has to think about that, go out there and just do the best that she can.
She does indeed. Christine Giampolizonca, to give her a full name, but GZ is what she's asked us to call her, so that's fine. Driver again with a lot of rally experience, also has raced Baja over in the States. She's been doing some buggy-style Dakar events as well. She did a shorter one in Spain recently. Works on a frozen lake in the winter, teaching for Porsche.
Wow, so this is an area that she should be fairly comfortable with.
She'd be happy if we were on the glacier.
Yeah.
But that's...
probably not great environment.
I was going to say, that's not cool. You know, we just can't do that. This is that bumpy section that the drivers are saying is like Saudi, and you can see it, really. I think the grass is different. In Saudi, if you remember, it was big clumps of grass, which, of course, was what tripped up Sarazan with that huge roll. We're not seeing that quite the same way. I think you could pick your line more easily here and not get into trouble. It's not quite so harsh, but it is similar.
Now, if you've just been there, you know what's happened with the JBXE car. How hard do you push this? Do you go, okay, well, obviously, if I take a line wrong, these are very aggressive, unforgiving terrains that they're trying to tackle?
For me, you need to look at the approach here and go, right, some people are having issues yesterday during practice. Some people have had issues here this morning. So you know people are going to have problems and drop down the order. I'd be looking at a couple of safe runs to try and get yourself up into semi-final 2. You ideally you don't want to be in the bottom 3, because I say there's only a 1 in 3 chance of going through. So if you're going to play the odds, you want to be top 6. So I reckon don't go mad. You don't do the drops too hard. Personally, I would say to the second driver, go flat out over the rock garden, but not the first one. Because you've still got a whole lap to go at that point. You could see there, Michaela got the car back with broken steering. Most of the drivers will be able to do that. So I'd risk the rock garden on lap 2, and for the rest of the course, I'd be taking the drops just slightly easier.
Well, we'll see what they do as they come through. Flags 11 and 12 just by the side of the lake, the rear end of that Xite Energy car just jockeying around, swinging a little. She'll need to try and pull that a little bit together. Oh, she got dangerously close towards that water there, the front right.
I'm wondering if there's an issue with the rear of the car. I don't know whether she's not having to put too much steering in through there. I wondered if there was a puncture. It doesn't look like there is at this point. But you saw the car get too sideways twice through there. Either that, or maybe they're just running it a bit stiffer. When did they run yesterday in practice? I'm trying to see if they might be one of these teams who was out.
So they were last, they were the penultimate team, car 8.
Yeah, so the track should be similar, Jenny, to how it was for them yesterday. It may be they've made some setup changes and perhaps not gone the right ways. It doesn't look that easy, does it, for GZ to get through these narrow sections? The rear of the car looks a little loose. But
She'll be very happy that the sand section is probably a little bit behind her now as she gets onto that gravel area. You can see the change in profile. So let's see if the car handles better. It might be set up towards the sort of second part of this circuit and track, so that actually, yes, on the sand it's a bit claggy, but now when it gets out into the open onto the gravel and rock, maybe it handles better.
yeah, I know, exactly, and there's more of this than there is of the narrow stuff. You could make a compromise on the settings, definitely, and say, look, the car's not great through here, but 2/3 of the course are the other way. And that's one of the things with any style of off-road racing. The setup is nearly always a compromise. It really is.
Oh, you can just see she's really bracing herself as Christine now. This is the part where there were problems before for Michaela Arlen-Kotelinski. So she's not had the opportunity to watch that. Obviously, she was already in the car, but she'll have been told, they'll have reported back, taking that riverbed jump really nicely at the moment. So there we go, down and up once again. This is the lovely jumper 18. You'll see the glacier in the background, and boom, the impact on the car. Aggressive. Yeah. She didn't look like she pulled out of that at all.
And she's now gone 14 in the space of 2 sectors there. They were 5 seconds down, and now she's 10 seconds up. So that's an absolutely huge gain over the benchmark time. Of course, is Veloce Racing. Emma Gilmore went out first. Seeing several different angles of the car there. And it's interesting to see the way the car behaves compared to Innick. Gritted teeth there over the jump. She maybe thought, okay, I might have launched this one a little bit too high, but I would say they're not taking, there isn't a lot of caution in this run, Jenny, and their fastest so far, 10 seconds up at the moment on Veloce.
Yeah, so she'll do the uphill section and downhill sections, which are really fast around this, and then it gets flat. This is where we would expect to see the hyperdrive coming in. You can see at the bottom of the screen, you can see the graphics with that little cross. As soon as they use their hyperdrive, the cross will go purple, and we'll get a really good gauge as to when they're using it. So another uphill section. Expect that hyperdrive to be used around now?
Yeah, definitely looking at the previous run to say I think people will start to risk it during the super sector, which has ended. The super sector was just where she climbed up a moment ago. We've not seen it. We sometimes, there we are, now she uses it. So now she uses it just to get that extra bit of pace. It's a few seconds of extra power, basically. Every driver can use it once on each run, so each of the pairing can use it. They've actually lost a couple of seconds in that last bit there. They were 10 seconds up, now it's just 8.82.
Looking good, though, at the moment. A really impressive performance. Their fastest out of anybody, but only, obviously, one real time set on the board, and that by Emma and Stefan from the Veloce team. So what can Xite do? They'd be delighted if they could push their way up the championship standings. At the moment, they want a solid weekend, and I think Christina really needs to set the pace before Oliver gets in there.
I think they've been doing a good job so far this season. You know, I think they'd be the first to admit they've not set the timesheet to light, but they also haven't done anything stupid. Consistent pace, consistently improving. 7 seconds up now. Not too much caution through that rock garden section. It looks as though they've managed to keep everything intact as they're coming round to the driver changeover. So yeah, losing a little bit of time towards the end here, Jenny. Again, we can see now it's just down to 6.8. So Gilmore at this point was going more quickly than GZ is as she comes into the driver change. I think Christine will be happy with that. And now, of course, it's now Bennett versus Sarazan. And Sarazan is the vastly more experienced driver of those two. Or I think she was late on the brakes there, and I think she might have come in more than 30 kilometres an hour. If that's the case, it will be a second per kilometre an hour, and that could really hurt if they were speeding on the way in. I might be wrong, Jenny. What do you think?
No, I think you called it very well. I think they were speeding. Remember, this is the team, and unfortunately it was Christine GZ yesterday who missed going around that chevron marker as well, so they picked up 15 seconds for that. We'll see what the stewards say. If Andrew's right or wrong, you never know. It's the gamble.
Got to have a little gamble on it.
But let's see what they do in the switch. So you can see Christine pops out. She hands over to Oliver, who gets in. No seat for them. They're relatively similar build, so they don't need an insert.
It's very fucked up, okay? Try to keep it in the line.
Very cut up.
Yeah.
Try and keep it in the line, she said.
So that may be an indicator where we're saying perhaps the rear of the car is a little loose. That may just be what Christine is saying, that it's cut up at that part of the course, and she's passing that on to Ollie as he gets into the car, tightening the belts up. He's a full visor man, visor down. 45 seconds is the minimum time they can have for this switch, and you can see he's got his finger on the dash, and he'll put the car from neutral into drive, because that's how they measure that 45 seconds. So they're waiting, they put it into gear, and then they can drive away. So heading out on track now, and it's basically Ollie Bennett versus Stefan Sarazan at the minute, because Veloce are at the top of the timesheets as we stand. Third car on course at the moment.
Yeah, just in the standings, they're currently 5th on 37 points, tied with Andretti United. There's a whole gaggle of drivers and teams tied around the 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th, separated by just 2 points. So a lot to play for, a lot of points out there. Ollie knows what his teammates just done, so he has to go out there and try and keep on to this lead, and we'll see as the times go round if he's able to do that. Out through the sands, a little bit bumpy here, and as Christine said, keep it in the ruts that are already there. You can see how cut up actually it's getting just towards turn 2, and that's going to be a real problem when you've got more cars on there. You're not going to be able to pick your ideal line.
No.
You're going to have to go wide. You're going to have to do something very different.
5 cars, of course, in the final here in Greenland. I have to say, I'm really looking forward to that. Not going to lie. Let's hope we don't have any contact on the run to the first corner, because we were excited about a 4-car final in Senegal, and unfortunately, the drivers got a bit too excited, and we ended up with a couple of parked cars, didn't we, in the first corner,
Little
which
bit
is
of
a shame.
contact. I'm fine with that.
No, I'm fine with it too.
Keep it safe.
But just no broken cars, please. You know, let's get 5 cars into a battle. I think we can go down in a moment and have a catch up with Christine, who's just got out of the car, while Ollie is heading into the drop down towards the more open section again. Oh, he's really chucked it off the top there. That's that little crest that we've got a camera parked at the side of. But we'll go down and have a word with Christine GZ.
I'm with Xite's Christine GZ. Christine, you were so fast in that first qualifying, but the drops looked heavy. Did you hurt your hand?
No, I felt it in the head though. It was really hard. Because I thought yesterday was good, so I got a bit faster and I was like, oh, not a good idea.
Were you pleased with it?
It's okay. If the car is fine, that's the important part.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
So Christine GZ there, saying it was a tough battle for her, and understandably, this is a very different track to the ones we've seen before. That rock garden, the jumps, the bumps, it really takes it out of you. This is a very physical championship this weekend. And the temperatures, yes, they might have come down considerably by around 25 degrees. It's only 4 degrees this morning in Greenland, but I can tell you what, it's hotting up in this championship. It's brilliant.
Ollie's doing a great job here. They're still 8 seconds up at this point. As I say, it would have been Sarazan who was in the car for the second half. Looking at the splits from the first lap, the difference between Gilmore and Giampoli Zonca was only a couple of seconds by the time they got to the end of it. So they say it's Bennett versus Sarazan, and Bennett's doing a really good job here.
Yep, certainly is. This is the rutted section, especially as we go through turn 13, that you can really see. They'll drop down, single file, squeezes past. It looks like they're going so close to this rock, I can assure you. It's not quite as close as it looks, but they'll take their angle, they'll pick their line, go left or right through that grass section. So he's gone right out onto that gravel section now, and let's see what he can do coming into turn 16 and the glacier turn.
Love seeing the drone come in there, hovering across the shot as we saw Ollie come in. I think it's worth mentioning as well that Ollie Bennett, Xite Energy Racing and My Energy are behind one of the legacy projects here. They've installed solar panels at the school in Greenland, meaning they'll be able to switch off their diesel generator for the last time. And that to me is that's a great legacy, using the sponsors on the car, you know, involving the local area, all of it, just a perfect fit. And it was great to see all the drivers with the kids. The kids were in the traditional Greenland dress as well. Yeah, very, very cool legacy project. So well done to Ollie and the whole team for that.
Tell you what, I don't know how many kids are at the school, but there's only 508 people living in Kangerlussuaq, which is the region that they're in Greenland. So not the busiest school in the world, I would imagine. I know schools with more than 508 people in it, full stop.
Yes,
so yeah, I'm sure it's a really great school and a really great legacy for Ollie and the team to have left behind. That car just, it looks good out there. I'm really enjoying watching what they can do with it.
Still showing us 8 seconds in the lead at the moment. I'm just trying to see if that's going to change at the next waypoint, which is this one here.
Kicking out the back, isn't it? Just a little bit like a kangaroo. Not too much, but a little bit skippy.
Past the next set of flags. Okay, the time isn't changing, and I'm starting to wonder if we're maybe not picking up the sectors, which, I say, we would normally expect that to change every time they go through. So maybe an issue with the transponder on the car. It doesn't matter, the time will still be recorded at the end of the lap, but I just suspect here that we're not quite seeing the exact race pace of the car as it's heading around. Ollie's in the super sector. This is where the super sector ends, so you brake hard, get the car up over the top, little pop jump, and then this next section is where most people, Jenny, as you've been saying, have been using hyperdrive because it's so flat and fast.
Yeah, it just gives you better traction, doesn't it? If you've got better traction, the wheels are attached to the ground, and that means, there we go, as he pushes hyperdrive, it just means you can go a little bit faster for a little bit longer. You want to carry as much speed as you can on this section and really try and increase where your standings are.
Bennett, yeah, he's ended up with the visor up. Look at him getting thrown around in the car. They really are impressive, the terrain they can cross at the speed they are. Now setting the car up for the next gate. You can see on the brakes and around to the left. Coming up, I wonder how much risk it's going to take through the rock garden section right at the end of the lap.
Because you can shorten that rock section if you choose to. You can go a shorter way. The narrowest point is around 20 metres. The widest point is 50 metres. But you've got to work out jeopardy, risk, reward. We talk about risk and reward a lot, don't we?
Yeah, but that is exactly the case, particularly in this rock garden section. For me, it's about the line. So Ollie looks at the line and he does brake. He brakes quite hard. Yeah, fair enough. You know, I think that's a decent level of risk to say. I think you could probably go even harder over that if you want to gain a little bit more time. Straightens the car out now, and it's just a blast up towards the finish line. And the target time is a 4:19.4, and as you can see, they are 17.54 slower. Good run, though. First three cars are through the course, then we'll take a look back at some of the highlights, or lowlights in some people's cases. This was Emma Gilmore. Now, Emma comes in here, she's backing the car in, which is a technique she would use in rallying normally, but she normally rallies a Suzuki back home in New Zealand. It's a four-wheel drive car. It doesn't have 2 tons nearly behind it, and you can see the weight just gets away from her in the rear, and she knocks the flag down. Unfortunately, Jenny, that was a 10-second penalty, but I like the fact that Gilmore's got the car by the scruff of the neck and he's hustling it. So I think it's a good sign. Yeah, okay, high penalty to pay, but she's got that car by the scruff of the neck.
Yeah, Emma coming in to replace Jamie Chadwick this weekend, who's on W Series duty in Belgium. And Emma, you can see gritted teeth, really wrestling this Odyssey 21, but really enjoying it around this beautiful, scenic former riverbed with the Russell Glacier in the background as well. And this is the rock garden section. Now let's take a look at how the cars handle it. Very different routes, very different ideas, but you've got to get through it either way.
I watched Christopherson yesterday on some footage that we saw here, and he was walking across it with his iPhone on a very specific line, and I think he had picked the line with the least risk, and that's what the teams need to do, is pick the line with the least amount of deflection. Yesterday we saw Kevin Hansen get a puncture going through that section. It was a good run. Look at that, firing the rear end of the car really high in the air. But you've got to pick a line, and you need to try to avoid too much of an angle deflection. And Jenny, that's what here, unfortunately, Michaela Arlen-Kotlinski didn't manage to avoid. Veloce did get away with it on one of these early rocks, but watch this.
Yeah, so this is the JBXE team, and you can see the wheels clattering along, and it's that stone, that's the rock that she impacts and hits, and unfortunately for them, it breaks the suspension arm on the front left of that car. So she tries to get up the hill, and you can see she's fighting the car already and continues to do so until it absolutely crabs towards the end of that. But that's the reason that, as you say, Christopherson was out there with his phone just looking at it and speaking to some of the teams overnight. They did say that the big rocks can be pretty loose. So you can actually, with the weight of these cars, nudge them around, which means that if you took a line yesterday and you think that's secure, that's fine, it could change overnight. It could change from run to run.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a line you think is right, but we've seen some pretty big rocks moved by these cars. Here we go with the Xite Energy machine coming into the same section. We already said you could maybe take a bit more risk on the second lap, because if you do break the car or take a puncture just a few hundred meters from the end of the run, it doesn't matter too much. But the deflection on the wheels is absolutely enormous through there, and that's something which is definitely new compared to the previous tracks. We've not had anything like that in Saudi Arabia or Senegal.
Yeah, the super slow-mos actually just show how much those rocks are coming up. A traditional gravel end to that section in the rock garden. You just flick it up like rallying style. But a beautiful section, beautiful chance to see the cars and how they deal with it.
15 seconds.
Abt Cupra are up next, and Abt Cupra were the pace setters yesterday in free practice. So yesterday they did a 13:58.4, which was some 20 seconds faster than anyone else had gone. Veloce have set a similar, they set a 4:19. That would be the same as what Andretti set yesterday. They were the P2 car yesterday. So Abt Cupra with Jutta Kleinsmith at the wheel, legendary Dakar driver, first and only woman to win the Dakar, and she took over in Senegal, of course, really fitting, really, because it was Senegal where she won the Dakar with the Lac Rose stage at the end of the event. Brought back amazing memories for her, I'm sure. Called into the team at the last minute to replace Claudia Hürtgen, who wasn't very well. Did an incredible job, and the team went, you know what? We're going to snaffle you, we're going to sign you right up, and Jutta is now in the car, and I'm expecting big things, Jenny, this weekend from her and Matthias Ekström.
Yeah, she really impressed last time out. It's her birthday tomorrow, so this is a little birthday treat for her to go, yeah, you're now a permanent fixture in Extreme E. She was really impressive, and I think she will set the pace today for a lot of the drivers.
I'm thinking more in tomorrow's terms now. If it's her birthday tomorrow, I think we've got to take the win, haven't we? You've got to take the big trophy home on your birthday. I mean, that's quite the present, isn't it?
Should look for the cake, the icing and the candles too, and a cherry on top. That's what she's looking for, and at the moment you can see timing very close. They are in second position, and she is catching all the time.
Yeah, just 100th of a second in it at the moment. Super smooth. She's, of course, first into the car. Now they're 2/10 up, just flies it down over that crest, back onto the sandy surface. Kevin Hansen saying this morning that it's sandy up to about waypoint 12, and from then on it's gravelly and rocky. Very much a course of it's actually 4 sectors, but it's 3 different sections in terms of style, isn't it? And we go now from the sandy wide open section, Jenny, to the dirt, really narrow section.
Yeah, narrow, undulating, going up, down, those ridges really settling in now, and you can just see through this is the section, as you say, a little bit off camber, opening up. You can see the sand just ploughing out on the left-hand side of the car, continuing through this section of ridges and then dropping down towards the lake. Now, we've seen some of the drivers tackling this bit and just getting a little bit messy, so you've got to try and keep it absolutely perfect heading in and through gates number 11 to 12. This is right by the water's edge.
I've just had a little thought about Veloce's times. It was a 4:19, Jenny, but don't forget, they had a 10-second penalty added to their time for Emma taking that flag down. So actually, yesterday, Veloce would have gone P2 with that. They'd have been right up there, just 10 seconds behind Abt Cupra. So I think that's a good sign for how quick Gilmore and Sarazan are together. Obviously, they need to avoid taking the flag down. Kleinschmidt taking a cut to the inside line there. She can do that because it's between waypoints. As long as you go between the flags, you can take whatever line. But now she makes a mistake. So she tried to go right too early there, came through the waypoint, was expecting the course to go right. So unfortunately, yeah, she's lost time. She's lost time. Now, Jutta Kleinschmidt was, of course, our championship driver and has been signed up by Abt Cupra, and so we've had to get a new championship driver, and Tamara Molinaro has been signed up, a brilliant rally driver, and I think we've got Tamara on the line now from our commentary position in the paddock. Tamara, are you there?
Yes, I am.
So how's it going? You're the championship driver now. I know where you really want to be. You want to be out in the car. But looking at Jutta Kleinschmidt here, this is a brilliant performance from her. And I'm sure you're probably quite looking forward to the chance to stand in.
Yeah, well, of course, for sure, as a racing driver, everybody wants to compete. But look, it's a really amazing opportunity for me to be championship driver. I've already learned a lot of things, and it's really nice to stay behind the scenes and see how many people actually work so hard for this championship. It's absolutely incredible, and I think every driver should be really thankful to be around these really nice people and environment.
Tamara, just tell us what it's like for you out there in Greenland. What have you been doing? What are your responsibilities this weekend?
Well, there's always a lot to do, let's say. Me and Timo have been, let's say, fixing the track. So we've been working together with Guy Nichols and James Taylor really hard to make the track look as good as possible with all the flags and everything. So yeah, I mean, this was about it. Of course, we drive the course as well with the Odyssey, and it has been an amazing opportunity and an amazing feeling. Yeah, it's quite cold here at the moment, but yeah, today at least it's nice weather comparing to yesterday.
So this is a great run for Kleinschmidt at the minute, 7.52 seconds up. What can you tell us from your point of view about the course tomorrow? Like, where is the big risk? I mean, for us, obviously, the rock garden, we've seen some issues for drivers there as well. When you were out there setting up, what struck you as particularly tricky? You've got a lot of experience as a rally driver, so looking forward to hearing your thoughts on it.
So yeah, first of all, I think personally the track is amazing. I mean, when me and Timo have been driving it, we really had an amazing time. We really enjoyed it. Of course, there are some really tricky parts. For me personally, as I'm not, you know, an off-road expert, the trickiest one, I would say that it's just after the hairpin where the glacier is until the first drop, because you really have a lot of hidden dips and the speed is really high, so you really have to try to look out and be careful for, you know, where the big ones are and be careful to break enough for it. But yeah, I mean, all of the track is a bit, you know, tricky, so you always have to keep an eye out.
We're just seeing Jutta approach the rock garden around 28 and 29. She flies over that section. That's high risk, isn't it? I mean, when it comes to that, she really gave it some welly.
Yeah, that is big risk. So she was 11.5 up. You can see the gain there's been around another 0.8 of a second. You could argue that's not enough of a gain for the risk, but they've obviously decided that's the strategy. They've got a line, they picked it. They're comfortable with the pace. So Kleinschmidt now coming into changeover with Matthias Ekström. 12 seconds quicker. I mean, this is impressive, isn't it? It really is impressive. I'm looking to see what the quickest lap time is on that first lap. Well, it's right up there for Kleinschmidt. Early on the brakes, manages to get the car slowed down. We haven't seen a penalty, by the way, for Xite Energy. We thought they might have broken the speed limit on the way in, but it seems that they did manage to scrub that speed off just in time. And in comes now Jutta Kleinschmidt for the changeover.
Tamara, just talk us through the switch process from a driver's point of view. What's it like for them?
Well, I think it's a bit, you know, stressful, especially for the person that is actually waiting there. You know that your teammate is actually, you know, driving and giving it everything, and soon it will be your turn. So for sure, it's a really high adrenaline moment, I would say. For sure, you also have to be careful to, you know, put the belts in a proper way and make sure that you are properly fit in the seat position. So for sure, it's not an easy moment, let's say. And, you know, also with the pit limiter, being sure that you get into the zone at 30 kilometers an hour until the end. Yeah, let's say that it's not rest for the drivers, for sure.
So Ekström is about to head out on his run. Tamara, thank you very much. Do stay put if you've got some more time. We'll come back to you later. Ekström with the orange visor down. That's to give a little more sharpness to the colours, so he'll be able to pick things out more. You use that in low light levels. And we did actually see it earlier on today. The sun was out for Sarazan's run, and you could really see the bumps, but Ekström gone with the orange visor to try and get a little bit more of a view. Let's have a chat with Jutta.
I'm with Abt Cupra's Jutta Kleinschmidt. Jutta, you must be pleased with that.
I don't know the time yet, but the team told me it's okay. So then I'm happy if the team is happy.
Was that exactly what you expected today?
It was different because we had less power than yesterday. And so it feels different, and it's a lot of ruts out there now, you know. So from yesterday you can see we have ruts like this, you know. I take a completely different line through the stones because I could see yesterday I tried to take the smoothest line because I thought maybe I damaged the car if not. But then everybody else went straight over the stones, so I did the same today. And yeah, for the moment it worked out good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that was the voice of Jutta Kleinschmidt. She went out there first for the Abt Cupra team and now hands over to Matthias Ekström, who looks to grow that lead, and he is going fastest. You can see that section in purple now means that he is the fastest driver to tackle this section. 20 seconds up on everybody else. The leaders at the moment, Veloce and Stefan Sarazan, with his run was the fastest. So what can Ekström do? Looking very impressive as they go up through the tight, twisty, narrow section of sand that really challenges the drivers. As you heard Jutta saying, she tried to pick a smooth line. She tried to go with a safe option. And let's see how risk-averse Matthias is through this section.
Ekström's another driver with just a huge variety of experience. I think most well known for obviously being the World Rallycross champion in 2016, also a DTM champion. So, you know, those two disciplines couldn't be more different, but he has now switched to a more rally and rally raid focus. So he's actually, whilst he's working with Cupra here, he's going to be working with one of the VAG group partners, Audi, doing the Dakar rally. He did the Dakar earlier on this year, which was great preparation for Saudi Arabia. He's such a clever character, Ekstrom is. He really is. And he's one of those guys who can just calculate. When he's absolutely at the limit, he still seems to have some brain power left, some brain power spare to be thinking about what the risk is. That's the same line I think we saw Yuta take. And then Yuta, as she came up to the crest here, went right slightly too early. So I reckon they could have gone even a couple of seconds quicker than they've gone now, Jenny. And at the minute, they are absolutely destroying everybody else.
Yeah, you can see from the graphics that extreme hill going down to the gravel hazard, counting you down almost to it with 200 meters to go until the surface. You can see exactly where it changes. From there, you could almost grab a sandcastle to there, where it comes into gravel and a jump on the way. The glacier in the background as well. A spectacular assault on the senses in Greenland. And what a backdrop it is for Ekstrom. He's used to this, grew up in Sweden, knows his way around a bit of ice and snow, but for this, let's see what line he takes into 16.
27 seconds up as they come up to that open hairpin in front of the Russell Glacier. And fastest by an absolute mile. I think this is going to go quicker than they went yesterday during free practice. He's coming up to the super sector now. So the super sector actually starts at the drop-off. So you'll see that in a moment. There's a drop-off jump. It's not that one. It's after. This is the section that Tamara was telling us is so risky. And it's where we saw Michaela Arlen-Kotlinski have her moment where she dropped in. This is where the super sector starts. And it finishes at the climb jump, if you like, at the far end after the big braking zone.
So a challenging track for everybody here, but you can just see the car absorbing a lot of the pressure. Almost 2 tons of the Odyssey 21. Brake lights going on as they approach the uphill section. Oh, a little bit of sideways action there just before taking that jump. Managed to straighten it out though. Get some nice air there and then into the left-hander.
Ekstrom pushing hard here, so they're qualifying. They qualified 8th back in Saudi Arabia. That was when Hertzgen was at the wheel with Matthias. They then qualified 3rd in Senegal, but in Senegal they had a little issue, didn't they, at one of the changeovers and lost some time there. Ekstrom now uses the hyperdrive up at the back section. They could come in a full half minute up here if they carry on at this pace. I think it's important to note as well, Jenny, that both drivers were gaining time. Yeah, they've both done a brilliant job here. I think Kleinschmidt came in at something like 10, 12 seconds up, didn't she? And now Matthias has taken a further 20, potentially, by the end of the run. I wonder what they'll do over the rock garden, because Kleinschmidt was flat out over it, wasn't she, really? I know what, maybe Ekstrom will take that same risk.
Kind of almost they took so much speed into it that they almost floated over that section for Kleinschmidt. Really impressive. They're 7th in the standings at the moment. 35 points for Matthias Ekstrom. So that's a really tight fight at the moment, because the Sands team is on 36 points, then ahead of them 37 for Andretti United and Xite. So those 4 cars really close together. So you want to do as well as you can in qualifying 1. Give yourself as much choice as you can to get into a decent group for tomorrow.
Here we come, and Ekstrom drops through the dip, going to come up towards the end of the course on the rock garden any moment now. We'll be able to see just how fast he's willing to go across this section. Picked a line pretty quick, I'd say. There was just a little bit of speed retardation before he went across that. No issues with the car as he exits, and now it's just a straight blast towards the line. They are 30 seconds up. Kleinschmidt and Ekstrom for the Abt Cupra squad have smashed it with a 13:48.9, fastest by half a minute.
So, command centre, we are waiting for the next team to go out. We've had a very impressive time set down by the Abt Cupra. 15 seconds to go, and next up it is your championship leaders. It's the RXR team, and they will be looking again to set down an impressive time. Can they go faster than the time we've just seen just now by Abt Cupra? That is the question. Molly Taylor and Johan Kristoffersen pairing up, 14 points clear of everybody else.
So, at the wheel is Johan Kristoffersen. So this is the first team to put their male driver in first. That means the rest of the weekend is set by who drives the car first of all. So they've gone with Kristoffersen for their first lap. and then Molly Taylor for the second one. We know that these two drivers are the benchmark at the moment in this series, that they've won both events. They haven't taken either top qualifier spot. That's gone to X44. I think it's clear this weekend that the level is very high. Abt Cupra have just set the bar extremely high with the time that they've done. They did a 13:48, which was a full 10 seconds quicker than they themselves went when they were fastest yesterday in free practice. Now, at the minute, Kristoffersen is 3.6 up. That's against Jutta Kleinsmith's time, remember. Kleinschmidt was in the car for the first lap for Abt Cupra. Oh, but they are risking it, Jenny.
They are
There's a level of risk.
really going for it out there. And I find that fascinating that they're looking at this strategically as well and deciding to put Kristoffersen in the car first. Rosberg not around today. He won't be overseeing the team's operations from on site, but he's in every single engineering meeting and briefing virtually. He's actually in Bonn, and he's being given the European Cultural Award for Environment today.
Good lad. Fantastic work, and fantastic work from his driver. Kristoffersen with the biggest jump I've seen out of that section yet. Absolutely launched the car. Look at the speed he's carried around the hairpin as well. Some 6.3 seconds up. Now, interestingly, what they've done here, Jenny, is if they've effectively nominated Johan to start the semi-final. And I think that means that they are betting on it being really important to make the final. That's where, if you want to get the most points during the course of the weekend, we know that Taylor is one of the fastest drivers out there, but we know Kristoffersen has much more experience of racing into a first corner. Interestingly, if that does mean they make the final, of course, I think it will mean that Taylor will take the wheel when there are 5 cars into the first corner. So they must be feeling that Molly is absolutely ready to go wheel to wheel with those drivers in turn 1. I can't wait until we start seeing 3 cars in the semis, but 5 in the final. Really excited for it.
Yeah, par 3 slightly different this weekend. You really want to make it into the first semi. You need to qualify in 1st, 5th or 6th semi-final 1. Semi-final 2 will be made up of the cars that qualify 2nd, 3rd and 4th. And then the crazy race, 7th, 8th and 9th.
You know what, I think this is about that second semi-final, Jenny, because the second semi-final has got those 3 cars which are all going to be very close on pace. Kristoffersen is pushing hard here. Yeah, if you get the top qualifier spot, as we mentioned earlier on, you've got a reasonably easy run in theory because you're up against the teams in P5 and P6. But if you end up 2nd, 3rd or 4th, and you can't really, with the pace of the other teams, no one would be willing to bet on getting the top qualifier spot. So I think they've gambled on having that tricky semi-final 2 and Kristoffersen being at the wheel for the start of that. So, but masterful tacticians. I love the fact Rosberg is in these meetings. I suspect he'll be watching the footage back at home. So yeah, it's cool, isn't it?
Absolutely is. And these drivers make no bones about it. They make a fantastic double act.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about. You saw last time out when it came to the Abt Cupra car. It takes the 2 of them acting together at the very top level, sharing information. It's a very different and challenging role. As you can see, the Glacier in the background, a stunning setting, and the car kicking up there. The Odyssey 21, the lights come on and flash.
I think he's got a problem. The car's going slowly there. He has got a problem for Kristoffersen. He was 10 seconds up. Molly Taylor disappointed, as are the engineers. You can see the eyebrows raised. Kristoffersen is going slowly. He's not stopped. What's he going to try and do? Here we go, on board now. Car creaks to a halt. This is a disaster. The championship leaders and double winners, RXR, stuck out on course. Kristoffersen with the reset procedure. We recognise those beeps on the dash. He'll try and get going again. The car starts to move and they're back to full power. So they were 10 seconds up, Jenny. I reckon they've lost in the region of 15 to 20 there. They could still do this.
Yeah, they absolutely could. You know that these guys are hugely experienced in a wealth of motorsport, especially when it comes to rallying. So let's see, the live positions drop down to 4th. They're going to try and catch, but again, it's gone.
Hold on. Well, apologies for the language. You can totally understand why Kristoffersen's upset. They were 10 seconds up, they're 20 seconds down. Ah, so disappointing for them. Stranded, out on course, resets the car again. And again he's away, but it's a heavy landing that time, Jenny. Kristoffersen's frustrated. 3-time World Rallycross champion. I mean, he's won, you know, they're leading this series. He's won everything he's done, and he wants to win. They all want to win, and it's frustrating when it's something like this that's potentially going to make that job more difficult.
But you did point out they were going very aggressive. The anger from Kristoffersen.
Okay, Johan, very, very unhappy indeed.
Yeah, they've gone very hard out. Kristoffersen, you noted, you could see the driving style, 100% committed, 100% aggressive. We wondered if risk versus reward was the right way to go. They've gone very hard. Molly Taylor standing there watching on. She was in the command center. She's come out to go to the switch zone. He's got it restarted again. Softly, softly.
Abt Cupra were flat out though, Jenny. That's the thing, you know, look at their risk and they didn't have the issue. So they've got to solve whatever it is that is the problem. Because if you're going to go up against the likes of Kleinschmidt and Ekstrom, who can go flat out, look how hard they were trying and they didn't have any issues at all. You know, I wouldn't say they're going much harder than that in terms of the impacts on the car. There's not been one that I would go, that was significant and it's an issue. So, yeah, they're going to have to do some serious hunting around for whatever the problem is on the car and get it fixed if they want to win this weekend, because the pressure's on now.
He's just used his hyperdrive, so that's got rid of that. He's used that up for his turn round, so he's going to have to push enough, but nurse that car enough to get it around. And what must Molly Taylor be thinking? She's going to get into this car. She knows there's some glitch in the matrix with it, and she's going to have to do what she can as well. So the rock garden section will be interesting to see how much we can see Kristoffersen push, but he is furious in that car, and sometimes driving with a rage can be the best thing for your time.
I don't know whether we'll see no mercy or not across the rock garden. Johan has said it's high risk. He said there's a lot of time to gain there, but it's high risk. Yeah, they're not, I mean, at the minute, they're 1 minute and 5 down. We'll take a look at the timing screens in a moment and try to figure out where that will put them. As we say, you know, we have had a DNF. He does brake for it, gets the car straight. The deflection is all upwards. That's what you're looking for. You don't want the sideways deflection. So it's okay to hit a rock and let the suspension do the work. What you don't want to do is hit a rock and let the steering arm do the work, which is what happened to the JBXE car. Look how much that's cutting up there. It's getting really sandy now where the cars are digging in. That's launching the rear end of the car. They're coming in 1 minute down. Molly, we know, is very fast. I suspect Molly will be able to take another 20 or so off. We need to have a look and see what the gaps are between the other teams.
Tell you what, this switch is going to be very interesting. He's going to have to go around the chevron, slams it down to 30, goes around the chevrons as well. Molly Taylor and one team representative is there. Now, what will he say to Molly? How much information can he give her? We know in the past, we've heard that famously, doesn't give a lot of information, but very concise when he does. So let's listen in and see what Kristoffersen can impart on Taylor and how he can help her to get around this track the best way possible and try and claw back some of the time that they've lost. Slams on the brakes. Car door goes up. Insert goes in for Molly. Johan, give her something.
It's very calm, isn't it? They may wait and do it via the radio afterwards.
Just do your best.
That look.
You found a quickly way to do the whole cycle.
Johan's on the radio. Johan's on the radio. Did you see? Plugged into a radio. He's going to give the briefing to Molly via the radio. And do you know what? This will be tactical by them as well, not to give too much away.
I'm here with RXR's Johan Kristoffersen. Johan, obviously you were frustrated. Talk me through what went wrong.
So the car just stopped. Yesterday it stopped because I braked too hard, and today I don't know why it stopped, but I'm not very impressed.
Thank you so much for speaking to me.
Well, there you go. That says all. It's one of those occasions, Jenny, where less words say way more than a big explanation does. I'm not very impressed. Johan is not happy, and I wouldn't be either. You know, they were up, they were and back to the paddock.
Well, back to the command centre, because now his job...
Oh, Molly Taylor's rolled! She's rolled the car!
She's
coming again! Go on, Molly!
My word, that was a big roll, a big impact, total 360, but I tell you what, she's acted as if nothing happened, as if if she just maybe had a clip of a bush and then she gets going again. You can see there's sand in the car. These are built sturdy. She said when she spoke on the official podcast for Extreme E, it's a beast. I tell you what, the beast bit back then, and Johan has
He
no
won't even
idea.
know. He won't even
idea.
know. So the sand coming in through the top of the car. Molly's a rally driver. She knows. She will have rolled a car before and carried on. You know, all four wheels are on it. To be fair, it was end over end. She's lucky it was on the sandy section. Now, I mean, she may be carrying some damage. We'll take a look around the four corners of the car as they come up to this section. Looks okay. It's just bodywork, you know. It was... But she's going to keep going. I mean, this is absolutely torrid for the championship leaders. The car stopped on Johan 3 times. Molly's rolled it, but they're still out there and they're still trying. They're still only 1 minute and 13 down. Come on, keep it going.
I absolutely can't believe what we are seeing here. Molly Taylor from New Zealand. It's just incredible.
Let's have another look at this then. We're going to take a look at the roll for Molly. This is on board. Big bump. Lands the car, and she knows now that she'll be going over because the car lands sideways. Over she goes. Sand comes in, lands on its wheels. She's like, no worries. Let's get cracking.
Not from New Zealand, from Australia, because that's Aussie grit, isn't it? Coming in pure and simple, of course. The car, as you say, cosmetic damage to it. It looks a little bit ugly, but that's not stopping her, and she doesn't seem to be losing a huge amount of time, so she'll carry on. There's a little bit of extra ventilation to that Odyssey 21. I tell you what, Nico Rosberg, wherever he's watching this from, because he can't be here this weekend, must have just had kittens. Can you imagine?
I think Nico's going to be on the phone 100%. They'll want to be making changes to make sure. It's mad though, isn't it? You think about it, Kristoffersen stopped 3 times with minor impacts on the car. Molly rolls the car and it doesn't need resetting, and it's just one of those horrible, frustrating little electrical faults with the car, which has been causing them problems. Picks her line down through there. Look at the front left headlight is hanging down in the wheel arch. It's still working, but it's flying, smashing around in there. This is a proper hero drive. Absolutely loving it.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right, and it looks a little bit like the Terminator gone wrong, doesn't it? Just all bits hanging around, but Molly Taylor wrestling this beast and showing what she can do. Now, this is the section it started to go wrong for Kristoffersen. He'd done really well up until this point. Car didn't like this section, so let's see if by rolling it in a full 360, they've rebooted the system somehow, and it seems to be working better. This will be the moment we can see. This is the super sector chance that she's just about to go into, and actually Kristoffersen used his hyperdrive a little bit earlier on in the section. So let's see now. The car seems to be operating well. Where Molly decides to use that hyperdrive.
I was going to say go for it now, because again, you know this isn't going to be the best time. They're 1 minute and 30 down thanks to the issues for Kristoffersen and a roll for Molly Taylor as she continues. So we know the time is already not going to be ideal. This is one of the places where Kristoffersen stopped, but Molly is aware of that and she lands the car gently. But this is the super sector now, so she could go for a big push in here, see if they can grab those 5 points when they know this run is effectively a write-off. But they've just got to get to the finish. That's the most important thing now. Get back, give the team as much time as possible to fix as many of the issues on the car as they can.
She's done quite a nice job as well of getting rid of that bodywork that was just hanging down and dangling. She won't have had a clue it was there, but actually the car will run a bit better now that it's off of it, and she can give it some real welly in this section, which is a nice, well, I say flat. Everything has its case and relative, yeah absolutely.
Everything's
but
relative.
she'll drop down here, go through a little jump, and then we'll see where she gets onto the other flat section after gate 24, which is uphill. It does get fast. We have seen a lot of the hyperdrives being used in that moment. What a shot.
This is that wide, flat out, open section. Car taking the bumps nicely through there. It looks pretty well dialed in. That's the end of the super sector. She jumped up over the crest. This is where we've seen all the drivers use hyperdrive, and she does. She uses it immediately, so she's gone for a big boost of power early in the acceleration phase to get to the top speed more quickly. Some of the drivers we've seen them use it a little bit longer. The gear ratio is such on the car that if you used it further up the speed, you could potentially get more top speed, but they'll have made a calculation on that, and it will, I'll guarantee you it'll be something clever.
Andrew Kohler, I know you come from the rallying world anyway, but for me, I don't. And looking at this car, when you can actually see, because the bodywork's been ripped away, you can see the suspension arms, you can see them absorbing, working so hard. It's fascinating. I say in the future, take that bodywork off so we can see how much work the car is doing, because just by having that little bit taken away, you can really see the forces, the impact. It's fascinating.
It is. It's great to see the suspension at work in there. You can see the dampers and the springs. They're the things that go up from the wheel up towards the chassis, and that's what they have to tune so carefully to make the car both handle well and be fast, but also handle the bumps and the jumps in the way they want it to. This has been an absolutely torrid run for RXR. Championship leaders and double winners, but Molly Taylor is bringing the car home, albeit slightly battered and bruised from a roll on her run after Kristoffersen stopped 3 times, I think it was, on his. And there's still only 1 minute and 39 down. They're not going to be at the top of the timesheets, but this is what championship winners do to try to get the job done. She crosses the line, the car is home, but there is work to do. Segi TV, Chip Ganassi Racing were up next. They sent Sarah Price out as their first driver. Of course, they were pace setters down in Senegal, but a couple of little issues. They had a problem on their second qualifying run, meant it didn't all go their way. They had their issues as well in Saudi Arabia. Would this finally be the weekend that they'd show their true pace? And Sarah Price certainly did that on the first lap. She was some 4 seconds faster than Jutta Kleinsmith, who of course was in the pace-setting pairing of Kleinsmith and Ekstrom in the Abt Cupra squad.
Taking over from Sarah Price, Kyle LeDuc into the car. Now, this is the man who set the super sector last time and got 5 points for the team. Could he do it again? They certainly deployed all sorts of ways. That section really sloppy and messy now. That was the same point that we saw earlier where Molly Taylor had her big roll. He managed to save that, though, and then went on to really perform well in the car, kicking up all over the place.
Kyle would admit that's as much luck as it is judgment, and for Molly, it was as much bad luck as it was judgment. You know, you're a little bit of a passenger when you get a kick like that in the rear end of the car, but he managed to hold on to it. They didn't lose the time. Also, in the middle of the run, taking the super sector, using his hyperdrive to just nudge a couple of seconds, 1.6 seconds faster than Abt Cupra went. So I think Abt Cupra feeling pretty miffed by this run. Not only have they gone fastest, but they also took that hyperdrive. It's a brilliant run by Sarah Price and Kyle LeDuc. Take a look back at some of the runs that we've just seen in a little more detail. RXR, double winners, of course, so far this season, aiming for 3 in a row, but it didn't go their way at all. First of all, Kristoffersen had 3 stops, and then Molly Taylor had this roll, and actually it was a soft roll, and she was so fast away, Jenny, it was almost as if it didn't happen. She certainly didn't look too flustered in the car. No,
there was a little bit of sand in the car, but it certainly didn't seem too dramatic for her. Far more dramatic, as you can see the in-car shots of that. Just letting the sand come in, and she just breezes us off as if nothing's happened at all. Incredible.
That's fine, I'll just carry on, it's just a roll. Look, you can see the frustration with the sand coming in, but other than that, really, and to be fair, the damage wasn't bad. I think their biggest issue really is sorting whatever the gremlin was for Kristoffersen, because the car itself here's the onboard look, and you can see it goes over in slow motion. Lucky it was on the sandy section of the course, Jenny. If it was on the gravel section, I think you'd be looking at a lot more damage.
Yeah, that's true. That sand absorbed some of that. That's the section in between 3 and 4, so we'll have to keep an eye on that for the other drivers and see what happens. We're going to get another angle of this RXR car. Nico Rosberg watching these as well at the moment because he's not there this weekend, collecting in the world in Germany.
Look how fast the roll was. It was just a very quick roll, back on the wheels and go. Just Molly is so impressive, isn't she? Yeah, obviously, you're rolling in a car, you're going to grit your teeth, you're not going to look very happy about it. One more angle. Watch the rear. So the rear bounces, that's bad already, and it's because it lands on its side. The rear right wheel digs into the sand, and that's what you see when you see cars in circuit racing crashing in a gravel trap. It's nearly always what you dig into. It's not really the off itself, and unfortunately, her rear right dug into the sand, and it flipped the car over. But it's a bit of bodywork damage. Her and Johan didn't look too stressed. I think they'll be far more keen on finding the electrical fault than they will on worrying about a few body panels. Bit of tape and tie wraps, that'll be done.
I'm going to say it'll rub out, no problem at all, that, and they'll certainly have some bodywork that they can put on, but what a shunt that was for Molly Taylor, and she just breezed it off as if nothing had happened. If you or I went through that, I tell you what, we probably wouldn't be feeling quite so happy with life right now. But no. These are athletes, they're professionals, they drive all over the world in various disciplines, and they've experienced most of what you can experience in a car. So yes, okay, maybe new for Molly doing a total 360 in an Odyssey 21, which is almost 2 tons worth of car, but she just gets up, carries on, and then goes and sets a pretty impressive time as well around this area, which is right by the Russell Glacier and over the rock garden. You can see the car takes the impact, little bits of carbon fiber. It's not carbon fiber actually, is it here? But little bits of the bodywork just flying off.
This was coming back into the paddock afterwards, and if we stay with it, you'll see Johan and her just with a little fist pump. There we go, no worries. Yeah, you rolled it, it's all good. We'll get it back together. This, though, for Xite TV Chip Ganassi Racing. They'd gone fastest, but they clipped a flag, and that meant a 10-second penalty.
X44 on track, Sebastian Loeb in the command centre. Cristina Gutierrez out there going through the ridge section, and she is trying to catch all the time on the leaders at the moment. This is the section that's being sort of dug up as they go along. You can just see how much loose sand there is. You get a beautiful sandcastle, but I'm not sure it's the quickest way to get round there.
I think it's worth mentioning as well, this is Gutierrez's return event after fracturing two vertebrae in her spine in a rally raid event in Kazakhstan. And it was brilliant, actually. Extreme E were really supportive. A lot of calls were made by Alejandra Gag to help get Gutierrez home. Basically, they flew her home I think in a medical jet in the end, and she's been in full recovery, and it's so great to see her here. Now, the time that they're aiming for, a minute ago, it was going to be Xite TV Chip Ganassi Racing. They were at the top of the times, but they were given a 10-second penalty after their run for Leduc hitting a flag. The rear end of the car kicked up high, got a 10-second penalty. So actually, still at the top of the table at the minute is Abt Cupra.
Yeah, so they know what they need to go out there to do. You can see it says catching as they go down the downhill section, lining yourself up to go to the gravel. You can see the landscape around here is so different from what we've faced before. She goes left past that big hillock and down. You can see with our generated virtual reality map exactly where she is, where she's got to go. She's going to approach the super sector, but before that, she'll go past the Russell Glacier, the ice sheet, the melting ice sheet, which is why we're here. The temperature around 5 degrees at the moment in Greenland, but that a little bit too hot, and the meltwater coming off it. You'll also see that in another one of the shots in a moment. It's just gushing off there in a state that is not going to be consistent with the glacier staying there.
Yeah, rain on top of the glacier for the first time ever this August, just a couple of weeks ago when the Santa Elena was already at dock in Kangalusak. They've got some scientific experimentation going on here as well to try and take samples. The drivers were all on top of the glacier taking those samples for the scientists on board the boat, and they're looking into what's causing some of those issues. So they are now on for fastest. So Gutierrez started quite carefully, which I don't think is a bad tactic when you consider that first sector, Jenny, is where everyone's had the issue. Molly nearly rolled. Molly did roll. Leduc very nearly rolled as well. So why not just take that sector a little bit steadier? And she's made all that time up.
Yeah, you can see there Sebastian Loeb in the command centre looking on. They're just pointing out bits, so the different camera angles you can see. Command centre, front, in car, and then you can see Cristina just really wrestling with the steering wheel, trying to get the best out of this Odyssey 21, trying to find the best line, the cleanest way to take a jump. You don't want to get too much air, but you do want it to look pretty cool when you're going around there, so the right amount is what you're trying to aim for.
Yeah, it's all it's all about lap time. And jumps look cool, but you also don't want to damage the car. In an ideal world, you'd be as fast over the jumps as you could possibly go. But as we say, all the while, it's like risk versus time all the while. And also, what stage you at in the weekend? You're not going to win right now by doing the biggest jump. If the biggest jump on Sunday puts you past the leader and in for the win, into the big trophy, yeah, go for it. Knock yourself out. Absolutely, send it over the jump. But right now, I don't think is the time. You'll see people take different risks at different points during the course of the weekend.
Yeah, hyperdrive, I think that was the swish you heard as Cristina Gutierrez used that in the X44 car just to give herself that little extra boost. Remember, each driver gets a turn at using their hyperdrive. They can use it wherever they want around the track, but makes most sense around this, the fast-flowing section around the gravel, nice, compact earth to get onto and get as much traction as you can.
I'm wondering as well, Jenny, so we've seen hyperdrive used to good effect with regard to passing people, particularly last time in Senegal there was the finish straight. You know, there were places where if it wasn't for the dust in Saudi, I think there might have been places you could have got the job done, but here very definitely there is a chance to use your hyperdrive to make a pass. There's the section just in the super sector, there's the section after you climb out of the super sector. You could use it off the start, so I think tactically it's going to be fascinating. This is the first place for me where there are multiple places that it is worth using it, and that is a great, perfect line over the rock garden. You can see wheels nicely either side of the particularly high rocks and nicely judged by Gutierrez. 1.6 seconds down as she comes towards the end of the lap.
So flag 30, you can see the marker. That's the marker that came down for Kyle Leduc. That's why they've got the 10-second time penalty added on to them. That's why it's the Abt Cupra team at the moment leading the way, and that is why X44 are chasing down that time. They're looking at second place at the moment. They want to increase that They're gaining, but they'll go into the switch zone now, and this is where they need Sebastian Loeb to have a really good session. Actually, he's been a little scrappy in the past.
2 seconds lost there, Jenny, on the brakes into the switch. They were 1.6 behind, now they're 3.4. No, it doesn't sound like a lot, but that's too much. 1.8 is too much. Obviously, you don't want to risk coming in at over 30 kilometres now because you get a second per kilometre, so there's a lot more to be lost from it, but I think they can get that braking just a little bit closer to the mark than that. But 3.4 down, it's a great run, isn't it? You know, they're looking at that third top qualifier.
Just a little trouble for Cristina Gutierrez, just trying to release the straps. You can see for someone who most recently had, as you said, 2 vertebrae that had ruptured, she's doing an incredible job. She wanted to fully recover, so hasn't done any other motorsport until coming here this weekend to Greenland. She wanted to be in tip-top condition for this, and she just helps strap in Sebastian Loeb, a man who really needs no introduction, although as soon as we've said that, we of course have introduced him. Gutierrez taking away the insert that she uses, and now let's see what Loeb can do. He can see the mission, knows exactly what lies ahead of him, and I wonder if he'll take it a little easy.
9-time World Rally Champion, taking over just a few seconds behind that top spot. He'll know what he's got to do. They'll have seen the splits. They'll say to him how far back he is, but he also knows he's up against Matthias Ekström and Karl Leduc, who were on the second half of their laps, and I think it's fair to say they both tried the hardest of the drivers. So, yeah, can he do it?
I'm with X44's Cristina Gutierrez. Cristina, talk me through that lap.
Lap is a little bit technical. I saw all the cars run it, and I see a lot of problems. So I think the key of this race is be calm from the beginning and see what is the rest. No, for me it was a nice lap, and we'll see in the next.
Thank you so much.
So Gutierrez saying there, keep calm. That's the key to this championship, they reckon. There are different ways of handling it, and different drivers have different styles. Others may not want to keep calm, but for Gutierrez and Loeb, that's the tactic they take into this. And I suppose they take it in from their leader, Lewis Hamilton, who is exactly that in a race car as well.
Let's see through this section. Loeb's gained some time, but again, no major risk through where the big moment was for Leduc and the roll for Taylor. It was the second, basically, there are 4 sectors here, and Gutierrez made up most of her time, I'd say, in sector 2 and sector 3. Down the hill now, and back into the sandy section at the bottom. And the green light at the bottom means that Loeb is gaining. At the minute, he's 2.58 seconds behind the time of Abt Cupra, Jutta Kleinsmith, and Matthias Ekström. Comes out of the ruts there to the right. You can see he was picking fresher sand, if you like, to try and find a bit more traction. This section here now is really heavily rutted, Jenny. You're looking at the bottom of the car actually running along and flattening off at the top. You can see it here where the underguards, and he runs wide, in fact puts 2 wheels off, but the underguards of the car actually start to flatten off the sand in between. You get to the point where the protection on the bottom of the car is almost ploughing the sand out of the way. That's fine. It's only bad if it's gravel. Sometimes it can actually lift a wheel off the floor if you reach a point where you're outside the maximum reach of the suspension. He doesn't go quite so far up the bank as we saw Karl Leduc go, but, you know, he's still gaining. It's Sebastian Loeb.
Yeah, going past the water front, trying not to dip any of the wheels into there. Gets slightly offline, actually, and just uses the back to swing it around and almost shoot himself up towards the hill. And I have to say that they are looking pretty impressive at the moment. We are going to go across to the comms box because Karl Leduc has gone from taking down the flags, which we're sorry about, Karl, to being in the comms box. Kyle, what are your thoughts right now? What are you seeing?
Oh, it's great to be here talking to you guys. You don't have to bring that up just right away off the top, taking down the flag. But
you know me, Kyle, I just get straight in there. Apologies.
No, it's good. I'm excited. We took a lot of risk, but a lot of that lap was really easy. So there's a couple sections, obviously, you can see where we took some risk, but the rest was really mellow, and the car is really dialed good. So the team's got the truck really, really happy, and it's almost easy through some of it. You know, then the high-risk parts, obviously, you can tell it gets rowdy, but just having fun behind the wheels, super fun.
It looked pretty rowdy in sector 1, Kyle. The section where Molly Taylor had her roll. You had a hell of a moment in there, mate. How was that?
Yeah, it was good. Obviously, you know, it's something, I say it all the time. My dad never told me to crash until you're upside down on fire. So it was everything but that. But it was good. Obviously, we don't want to do that all the time. But, you know, right now we have a strategy to try to get to the front, to try to make up some points and be in this championship hunt.
We saw that somewhat with your tactics in the super sector. Sorry, yeah, super sector. Hyperdrive in the super sector. We'd been saying all morning that we felt somebody would do it. Both you and Sarah tried it, and you did manage to get the fastest time in there. Is that optimal for the lap time, though? I mean, is that a tactical decision to try to get those points back, Kyle? Might you use it somewhere else when we get to racing and trying to get the top time?
That is the million-dollar question, right? It's a strategy we're trying to work on. This track is very technical in the beginning and super fast in the end, so we're trying to pick and choose where to save it. But right now, we wanted those points. The track's only going to get worse, so we wanted those points to try and click it off right away. So we set a pretty good time. There's a little bit of room for some improvement through there, but all in all, the truck handled it perfectly.
Kyle, when it comes to the final, for the first time, 5 cars in there. Of course, you guys want to be one of those teams as well. What do you think is the key to getting through into that final as Loeb uses his hyperdrive?
Just consistency. You know, we've had some big fails on my behalf, and you know, that's not the way I want to do this program, and that's not what this program deserves. So we're going to go a little bit different pace. A little bit different strategy, same pace, different mindset. Just nail it. You just got to nail it. You know, take the risks that are needed. Now our truck is starting to get set up better so that we can take some of the stuff. And now I think the truck has to climb a little bit up with us too. But Sarah's been good. She's been rock solid. So yeah, we just got to put it all together.
All right, well, awesome. Kyle, thanks so much for taking the time to join us. I know you guys will have a lot to do back in the paddock, so we'll let you head back there. But thank you, and well done. You know, fastest time, okay, with that cheeky little flag. We'll have to get around that and go again next time.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you for bringing all the excitement, man. You guys, as a team, make this definitely worth watching.
Thanks, Carl, so much, mate. Much appreciated.
Didn't even pay him to say that. Right, Loeb comes up to the end, and they have gone fastest. They set the pace for X44. Andretti United taking to the line, Timmy Hansen and Katie Munnings, and it was Timmy to take the start and go first in our first qualifying session. Just look at that car, looking really good, set up really well, and Timmy, really blistering pace set out there.
Yeah, amazing run by him. This first lap was absolutely maximum attack. Look at this, flew the car out. Used the hyperdrive in the same place that Kyle Leduc used it, in the bottom of the riverbed, and took the fastest time on the super sector. Really, look at it, chucking the car in, rotating around, big air everywhere around the whole track. Hansen was absolutely on a mission. They were doing so well, and then here, brakes hard, and the car just shuts off. Panic, disappointment, and then the amount of Katie as well, just an absolute shocker.
Yeah, Katie Munnings is ready to get into the car, but she had to wait for over a minute before they could recover that car and get it back into the switch zone. She put her seat in, had to clear her mind really and reset from what she'd seen and the disappointment, and she did that really well. She was focused, she did a good job of driving that car and trying to claw back as much time as she possibly could. And they did manage to go faster than the JBXE team. They managed to go faster than the Rosberg X Racing team as well, so finishing in 6th place. A good recovery drive from Katie Munnings for Andretti United Extreme E.
I screwed that one up.
Waiting for the final car for qualifying 1, and these are the leaders at the moment. In the middle of the screen, you've got X44. That's Sebastian Loeb and Cristina Gutierrez. So it's only Carlos Sainz and Laia Sanz now that can deny them being in that top qualifier spot at the end of this session. X44 have been the top qualifiers at both race weekends so far. Carlos Sainz yesterday was looking really fast, but they had a few issues with the car during free practice. And this looks like a maximum attack run from El Matador to me, Jenny. Look at this onboard.
Absolutely interesting. The team have chosen to go with Carlos Sainz first. Laia Sanz will go in second. Of course, neither of them with a huge amount of race starting experience, so I suppose it doesn't really matter which one of them wants to go first or second. But this, the testing section, it looks relatively easy, but I can tell you it's caught out a few of our drivers today. We've had some big crashes and a roll from Molly Taylor earlier. So Carlos Sainz just needs to pick his line, as you've been saying, Andrew Coley in commentary next to me. You've got to keep it straight.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the section through here where it can all go wrong, and you can see it's a double bounce is what can trip you up. We're not going to see it as we head up towards the first of the narrow sections. They then drop back down onto the sand again, so he'll come up towards the bush and then the hairpin, and then they head up into the really narrow section. So Carlos at the minute is around 4 seconds down, but to be fair, Loeb and Gutierrez were as well on their run. They took it easy through that high-risk section right at the start of the lap. So that might well be the plan here as well for Acciona.
So the Acciona Sainz XC team with Carlos Sainz in the car going up towards the ridge section. What can he do around here? He's such a specialist when it comes to rallying, Baja, Dakar, you name it. So sandy terrain, not an issue?
No, absolutely. This is right up Carlos's street. Obviously, he would be used to having a co-driver with him in rally and rally raid. But in rally raid, it's much more navigation than it is telling them where the road goes. So his skill set is in reading the road and seeing where the grip is and developing how the track is developing. As a rally and a rally raid driver, he'll be absolutely brilliant at that. It's incredible to see a man. You know, he's of. Well, he's older than Carlos Sainz Jr., put it that way, and he's still absolutely at the top of his game, Carlos Sainz. He was a very good footballer, he's a very good squash player as well. The man's a legend.
59.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly.
There's
hope for us yet.
Wow, I don't know about that. Age knows no bounds when it comes to this sport. One of the older competitors, but that doesn't stop you because it's an even field for this. You don't have to be the youngest one, you've just got to know what you're doing out there. You've got to be able to wrestle that car. I tell you what, I saw him doing some powered surfing in the run-up to this.
Yes.
His preparation, it was awesome.
Yeah, agreed. Do you know what's one of my favourite things about motorsport, Jenny, is I've been lucky enough to witness, obviously, men and women racing against each other in the same category, which I love, and there aren't many sports in which you can do it. Obviously, we're doing that here in Extreme, but also differently abled people as well, because once you're in the car, it does make the difference. I've seen loads of people competing in rallycross with hand controls, and it's wonderful. That's the great thing about motorsport. It's just a shame it's expensive. Then it'd be a bit more accessible to everybody then, but it's, yeah, great to see strides being made in the right direction here. One man, one woman in each of the squads. Leia Sands will be taking over from Carlos Sainz, and at the moment Sainz is 6 seconds down, but that would put them right up there, wouldn't it, overall?
I think he's really enjoying this section. As they come into the gravel section, it's a lot faster. The riverbed means that you're jumping up, you're down. The car's really bouncing around, and there's a lot of setup work that goes into these cars to enable them to be able to do this. Each car looks the same, each car is the same, but the setup of them slightly differs depending on who you've got as your mechanics and your engineers, and the feedback as a driver that you give to the team as well, and how your driving style is. Some people like a stiffer car, some people like it softer.
Absolutely bang on, yeah, and that conversation had with you. And don't forget here, not only have you got your own personal driving style, but you've got to take account of the other person in the car's driving style as well.
Compromise.
Yeah, compromise.
Something we're terrible at.
I know, yeah. But that is exactly what it's about in terms of the setup for both of you, the setup for the various pieces of terrain, the various styles of track. So it's never going to be a perfect car. You're not going to get it like you get a circuit racing car where someone says, oh, look, it's absolutely, everything's perfect. I'm so happy with the setup. It's always going to be a compromise for ride height, jumps, gravel, sand, etc.
Nice fresh piece of sand there that Carlos Sainz was going over. You could see there were no tracks already made there, and he is doing a great job. 8 seconds down at the moment, but in second place, and that will give them a whole host of points to go forward into the second part of qualifying and see if they can get into the very first semi-final tomorrow.
That wide section there, I'm expecting to see people use the hyperdrive and try to pass on the way to that crest when we get to the racing. You can see Carlos has used it here. Look at the acceleration in the car when he uses the hyperdrive. It really does make a huge difference, and that is the longest straight. So from a lap time point of view, this is the place. But when we spoke to Kyle Leduc earlier on, he said it's the million-dollar question: where are you going to use the hyperdrive? And that says to me that it's the talk of the teams. It will be absolutely critical. It's always hard to pass in any motorsport, but this is the first track, Jenny, where there are wide open plains that are flat without, you know, look at the crests we had in Senegal, which meant that not all those option lines were available. They are here. I think we're going to see some great racing tomorrow.
I love the fact that we've been able to speak to a few of the drivers that have come into our commentary box to share some of their time and experience and expertise, but none of them want to give any even slight margin to anyone else. So they're sharing their information, but they're very tight-lipped about where you can make an advantage, where you can get your time up. This, the rock garden, the car bouncing along. Oh my goodness me, Carlos Sainz is in for a real shocker of a rocker there, but handles it well, just losing a little bit of time now, stretching out to 13 seconds down on our first place team of X44.
There is some rain on the lens of several of the cameras, but that won't be affecting the lap time right now. It's not like circuit racing where if you get a little bit of wet tarmac, you know, the curves get a bit damp, that things change. At this point, there won't be any difference to it at all. You need to get to the point where either the sand was getting claggy or the mud was getting slippery, or we were looking at standing water for it to make any difference to these vehicles. So at the moment, I don't think the weather is a problem. I haven't done the very British thing of looking at the weather for tomorrow. Just incidentally, Sainz comes in 3.95 seconds up. So I think he's braked extraordinarily late there on the changeover. Let's hope not too late. Our timing screens are still showing no issues there. But yeah, 3.95 up, so Leia Sands now could potentially... Oh, Carlos has pulled into an early switch zone. He's pulled into the wrong switch zone.
That's frustrating. He needs to pull into switch zone 5, which is where one team member and your co-driver are waiting for you, and he just came in a little bit early, so we'll have lost a little bit of time there. Frustration.
See if he says anything. He's still got his comms lead in at the back. They just managed to pull that out for him. Leia gets in.
I think he enjoyed that.
It was a good run.
Really nice. He looked strong yesterday as well. They had a power steering issue, which meant they couldn't complete the run properly, but he'll be pleased with that, getting a really solid time on the board for Leia to take over. 45 seconds
They've got 2 sets of lap belts. So look down at the bottom here. There's one with red tape on, so they've got 2 sets of lap belts there, which I suspect are set up for Leia and Carlos. They are different size physiques, and obviously with the seat inserts, that can save you some time. But they're out of time already. They're losing time, 45. So now we're seeing they're counting down again. They've lost 3 seconds. She can't go until the belts are done up. It's not allowed. Finally, she goes. That's 5 seconds lost, and they're going to be, I reckon, a second or 2 in deficit now, Jenny. That was not a great changeover.
Yeah, they've done such good work out on track, but unfortunately, when they came in, didn't go quite right for them. Albert Fabregas, he's the team principal. He was the man with the clock saying, go, go, go. But unfortunately, didn't quite make it as slick as they could. You can see windscreen wipers on now. Conditions definitely changed since the first runs this morning, where it was quite bright sunshine. They had their sunnies on. So different conditions out there. Let's see what this afternoon brings as well. But you can see there's a fair amount of precipitation there on the windscreen.
I'm with Asiona Sainz, Carlos Sainz. Carlos, that was a fantastic lap. Do you think the entry into the switch section may have cost you some time? But you're definitely in the mix.
It's about 5 seconds here. For us, it's always difficult to change driver, you know. We are big. And it's not so much space, not so easy to change driver at least. Everything has to go smooth for us, and now it wasn't so smooth.
Thank you so much.
Carlos was actually one of the drivers at the first round when I think it was 30 seconds, wasn't it? You were allowed to do it in Saudi Arabia. It was, and they put it up to 45, I think, at the start of that event after Carlos said, look, you know, I can't get out of the car in and out of the car quite so quickly. Fair enough, I agree. And it is also the other reason for it being 45 seconds is a safety issue. So you must leave that area with your belts done up, with your HANS device, which is the carbon fiber device you see around their head and shoulders, which attaches to the back of the crash helmet. Everything has to be in place and ready to go for the car to be safely released. And that's why Leia didn't just go. She has to do the belts up, because we can watch, and so can the stewards, Jenny. And if they see her leave before she's done the belts up, they get a penalty.
Yeah, track really cutting up there at that turn 6 section before you get to the skinny ridges. And, I mean, this is familiar territory, but not a familiar vehicle for Leia Sands. She's still really, I suppose, getting used to the crossover from 2 wheels to 4 as well. So there's a lot to take in, and on a bike, it's just so different, isn't it? You're so exposed. But look at that, the rain's starting to come down more.
It's raining hard. So, you know, towards the end of this run, maybe the conditions will be changing, but you can see it here falling in front of this camera. 21 seconds down now, Jenny. I would suggest that if you look, she's losing time, and that's fine. You know, no worries. As you say, she's still learning cars, and she is up against some of the very best off-road drivers in the world. I admire anyone who's competed on a motorbike, particularly in rally raid style events. I just think it is other than the TT, it's about as mad as you can get in terms of motorsport. So you know, bikers usually make a brilliant transition to cars. It will just take some time to get used to being on four wheels. The vehicle behaves differently. It's much heavier.
Very rarely works the other way, I can tell you that much. Very rare for someone to be amazing in a car and then be able to transfer over to a bike. Many have tried it, no one particularly successfully, but Laia Sanz doing a good job here. Nice and steady. They've got in 4th place at the moment, so not the end of the world for them. They want a nice clean run as they go down this gradient section, pick up a little kick here by the big rock, and then towards gravel, which will be, I think, an easier task for Laia to understand, to be able to read the track.
Well, this, I must say, I think it's more difficult for the drivers to make a big difference on this second section of the track. So from here on, really, there's a couple of big braking zones into either the hairpin or the jumps. And then really, it's about momentum, Jenny. It's about how much do you want to risk a drop-off, do you want to risk a jump. It's not that technical, it's quite fast. So, yeah, let's see what she can do. She's late on the brakes there. The car kicks just a little bit for her. Trying to see if she's plus 30, how far down the order would they be? Would they get into, oh, they're in 5th, sorry, yes, of course. They'd be P5 at the minute. How close is she to P? Yeah, they're only 5 seconds behind Sarazan and Emma Gilmore for Veloce. So, you know, a bit of a push here. If she could gain those 5 seconds, and they could get themselves up another position.
Yeah, she's just got to stay calm, and we've heard that from several of the drivers now. You've got to stay in there, stay calm, do what you've worked through with your engineers and your mechanics, and make sure that you follow that plan. And yes, you have to adapt to it because these are ever-changing sands, aren't they? And the rocks are changing and all the positions, but you can see the focus as we go on board there with Laia Sanz. She's just looking incredible in that car. Really impressive. You can see the wheels, the tyres bouncing around, all of that pressure being absorbed by these Odyssey 21s, and she'll come down towards the water again as she rounds towards the rock garden in the final part of this, and this our final car that goes out in qualifying 1. And there she sees some of the lake just in front of her.
Losing a little bit of time now. Okay, and as I say that, gains a couple of tenths, so around 38, but she's got to drop back
no
to
hyperdrive
51.
yet.
No, maybe saving it for the long flat section. She's around 13 seconds in front of Xite Energy, so you know, now rather than looking at gaining a place, you want to be looking at holding on. I'd be interested to know if the team would be on the radio at any point, say, you know, try to push a little bit here. I think not, because I think you're roughly mid-pack here, and so it is what it is. You should end up in the top 2 semi-finals with the issues for other people. Laia has a little look down at the dash there. Did you see, glanced across to the middle? So she may be monitoring temperatures or battery percentages on the way back in.
Yeah, I've just tried to work out why she hasn't used that hyperdrive. I would have expected her to do that now, and she's just dropped down. Live position, you can see in the corner, is now 6th. So they've been oscillating around that point, but just losing a little bit of time now.
Maybe that's what she was looking at on the dash. It may be that there's, you know, something she pushed hyperdrive and it didn't come. We have to have a little guess, I'm afraid, at this point. We're only seeing the same thing that you guys are as well. So wipers on, weather's not terribly different. Whole nother qualifying session to come later on this afternoon. Work to do for some of the teams, isn't there? There really is.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I tell you what, work to do for Molly Taylor and their team as well after she rolled the car, because they had to basically refit a lot of the bodywork. But I've spoken to the team, it was just bodywork, so that's okay.
For me, the big thing there is the fault on the car. It's that electrical fault which cost Johan so dearly. 3 stops out, of course, he was absolutely furious. So around the last right-hander, this is going to conclude Q1. Sights and Sands for Acciona. It's a good, clean run, but they're not going to trouble at the top of the timesheet. So it is Gutierrez and Loeb for X44 who win qualifying 1. Katie Munnings on board. We're taking a look back at her 2nd lap for Andretti United after, of course, Timmy Hansen had been out and set an absolutely incredible time. He was fastest through the super sector, and then just as he was coming in to change over, Jenny, a problem, and that just puts you straight on the back foot. We heard the team say to Katie, you just need to bring it round, but she did a great job.
She really did. It's a recovery drive from Katie Munnings. Once again, we've seen her do this a couple of times now, just having to steady the ship after disappointment. You can see her face, you can see as we go in the car, absorbing those impacts. They're pretty big as well from these Odyssey 21 cars. And we're getting used to Katie's space of concentration. It's a thing of beauty, isn't it? Oh, she just braces herself for the jump. A bit like riding a horse going over a horse jump. You've just got to hold on, brace yourself for impact, and then carry on.
I've never ridden a horse, Jenny. Nothing terrifies me more than no, I'm terribly allergic to them, and they look terrifying. Give me a 100-mile-an-hour rally car through a forest any day. It's at least it's my fault when it goes wrong then. Beautiful animals, but yeah, terrified of them. But Katie, yeah, really good. It's particularly the jumps towards the end of the course. We could just see with the confidence that was there in the car. And that was something that she said yesterday. She wanted to make sure that everything, the relationship between her and the car was good, and she was feeling good. And I think that's been fixed. I think this is a much better car than they had last time in Senegal. It just looks like it's able to attack a little more, and that you don't have to be so nervous over the jumps. Do you remember how lively the rear end was in Senegal? It was all they could do to hang on to it, let alone to push. And I think to see Hansen setting those incredible times and Katie able to attack as she is, that this is looking like a good car now for Andretti United.
Yeah, I think that she's doing a great job of really trying to adapt to the different conditions. Obviously, Saudi Arabia, Senegal, very sandy, dusty conditions, hot conditions as well, and now total reset for a lot of these teams, giving themselves a different opportunity. Gravel, rock, yes, there's a little bit of sand as well, but temperatures have come down hugely, about 25 degrees cooler than when we were in Senegal, and I think she's just learning every time she gets in this car, every time she sits down with the engineers, the mechanics, all of the teams the same, but Katie absorbing it like a sponge.
Yeah, brilliant drive. Look at the concentration, left-hand side of the screen. It's so physical too. You can see the crash helmet moving every time she lands the car.
Actually, physicality-wise, that's why they've given her the insert. We spoke to the team, didn't we? And they said they've both got inserts for the first time for a race weekend because of the physicality, because they're bouncing around so much, and it should just help absorb some of that, shouldn't it?
Yeah, certainly. You need to be absolutely at one with the car. That means super tight belts. You tighten them almost to the point where it's hard to get a full lungful of air in. So Katie very much a part of that car, and this was a great drive by her for Andretti United. Well, that is qualifying 1 over in Greenland. Let's take a look at the results. Gutierrez and Loeb for X44 at the top of the table. Will they be top qualifiers for the 3rd event in a row? Kleinschmidt and Ekstrom have been furiously fast here in P2 for Abt Cupra. Price and Leduc as well. They would actually have won the session if it wasn't for Leduc tapping that flag down right at the end. Gilmore, Sarazan, and then on to Xite Racing for Christine GZ and Bennett. Sainz and Sands further down than we would have expected, but particularly Hansen, Munnies, Kristoffersen, Taylor, Arlen Kotlinski and Kevin Hansen, all with issues with the car, Jenny, and I think they're going to be looking to fight back big time in Q2.
Yeah, so just to recap our leaders, X44 in second, the Abt Cupra team, and then of course, it was going to be Chip Ganassi and Carl Leduc and Sarah Price getting a little bit of a penalty, but they did a really good job. So let's hear from the top dogs at the moment. It is X44.
I'm with X44's Sebastian Loeb. Sebastian, you've qualified top. That was a fantastic lap.
Yes, it was really a good lap. Christina did a great job. It was really close with Utah after the first lap. We were just a little bit behind, and I tried to push at the maximum all the lap to try to get in front, and it's what we did. The car was working well. I enjoyed the track here, and so we had fun, and at the moment we are leading the qualifying.
And Extreme E has taken people to, obviously, extreme locations. How has this Arctic X Prix handled your expectations compared to the other ones?
I have to say the landscape is just incredible. I went over there with the bike yesterday to see, and it's just amazing to see landscape like this. We are freezing a little bit, but no, it's nice to be here doing the first race here in Greenland. The people are really nice, and the place is beautiful, so we feel well here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really nice to hear Sebastian Loeb there saying we feel well here. The X44 team topping the time sheets ahead of Abt Cupra and the Seg TV Chip Ganassi Racing. I mean, this just sets us up for a fantastic afternoon. Qualifying 2 goes ahead, and Andrew Coley next to me, a bit of a qualifying change and setup change, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's not over for the people that have had a bad session because it's now not based entirely on just on time. So, for instance, JBXE, they can still, you know, if they get a great result, they might make it up into the semi-finals rather than the crazy race. You want to be in one of the two semis because there's more chance of going through. 2 cars go through from semi-1 and semi-2, only 1 car from the crazy race. So, ideally, you want to be top 6. It's not over for anyone, but it is interesting to see Abt United and RXR down at the bottom of the table. They're going to come out punching in Q2.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot to be done for a lot of these teams in the little break, but I tell you what, they've got everybody, all hands on deck. You can see, even though they're quite relaxed there, they're going to work together to try and improve their timings, get as many points from today's accumulated points in qualifying sessions that they can do. So the steam coming out there of Jutta Kleinschmidt's Cup, and it's going to get steamy later on as well. So make sure you join us for that because it's going to be a fantastic session.
Yeah, stick around. Q2 coming up later on today. That's Christine GZ, all smiles. She'll be all smiles if they remain in P5, and I'm sure maybe a little more excited if they can move up the leaderboard. That's the paddock in the background. There's going to be some work going on in there. Rosberg Extreme Racing with a roll for Molly Taylor, of course. You can see the command centre at the front, the black and green tent, where those decisions are made about tactics. How hard are we going to push? What is it that we're going to do? Yeah, going to be a fantastic Q2.